Hello, everyone. My name is Nitin Raizada, and today I'm here for a very exciting conversation, a very relevant conversation for our times. This is about rare diseases and launches. I think an area that is becoming more and more relevant over the last few years. I lead the Commercial Innovation Charter for Indegene, responsible for data analytics, patient services, and digital transformation business. Uh, Rare disease, as we have seen it unfold over the last couple of years, and as we see the pipeline coming up, we are seeing some very interesting manifestation. A lot of companies have jumped into the fray. We are seeing many companies launch new products, completely new categories where they are looking at educating the doctors, educating the patients, first-in-class treatments. And on the other side, we are also seeing in a very small patient population, companies are launching the fourth or the fifth product. So very small population, and you're looking at that small pool, you have to have very, very different strategies. The the small population, the dispersed locations, how to target HCPs and patients in that mix, and how to gain market access, it is more and more complex as more of these products are coming to the market. Today, I have some of the companies who are there in the play, people who are working there, people who have some very interesting perspective join us. I will I will have Saket Malhotra from Ipsen, Bart Van Medical from UCB, and Ashish Sharma from Novartis join me. Welcome, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And before we start, I just want to go around the table, have a quick introduction from our panelist. Saket, why don't you go ahead?
Thanks, Nitin. Good morning, everyone. My name is Saket Malhotra, Head of Data, Digital and Analytics Center of Excellence at Ipsen. I'm leading the data, digital and analytics capabilities across three therapeutic areas: oncology, neuroscience, and rare disease. Rare disease is very, very close, as Nitin mentioned, very different therapeutic areas compared to many other big markets. Being in the industry for over 20 years and have experience supporting global and regional markets across several therapeutic areas. Excited to be here to share my experience and thoughts around this topic.
Thank you, Saket. Bart?
Yeah, hi, hello, I'm Bart Van Medical, working in UCB in the Rare Disease Organization. I'm responsible as a global marketing lead for the launch of two assets that should bring UCB in the rare disease space, both prestigious and risk. And that's a very unique experience, the fact that it's not launching one asset in the disease area, but two assets simultaneously in rare diseases. So it brings a lot of challenges, and happy to share in this panel session my experience and learnings with all of you. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Bart. And Ashish?
Hi, my name is Ashish Sharma, and I'm the Enterprise Data Officer and Vice President of Strategic Data Products for Novartis US. I'm part of an organization that takes care of integrated decision science, which helps decisioning for not only our US president, but also the overall US business. Been with pharma for approximately 10 years and have seen many rare disease launches that I was part of, and that kind of enabled me to see what you learn by going through that journey. I'm a transplant from California, Silicon Valley, and an entrepreneur who turned into a pharma leader. So very happy to be here. It's a very important and timely topic. So thank you, Indegene, for organizing such an important discussion. Happy
Thanks,
to learn
Ashish.
from.
Yes, thank you. And, I have to say that these opinions, that conversation that we are having today, are all personal opinions. They are not representing their companies. And we would like to keep this conversation more about, the specificity of this area, but keep it very general so that we are not sharing any industry secrets there. Uh, I'll quickly start this topic. I think this question would be in everybody's mind, and probably all of you should answer this question one by one. What are the common challenges, right? Launches are launches, they are complex, but in rare disease, the launch looks very different. And especially with the focus on data and analytics, what are companies trying to deal with? What are the challenges that you're trying to overcome, especially when you're looking at launches in rare disease? So Ashish, why don't we start with you first? and then we'll go down the table.
Sure. So rare disease in general, as the name suggests, face several common challenges across the board, irrespective of what therapy area you are going in. In my opinion, I kind of segment into 5 different categories. Like overall, it affects a small number of patients. So the limited patient population poses a different challenge that you're not able to gather sufficient data to demonstrate the drug's efficacy, safety. So I think that's challenge number 1. Overall high cost and financial risk in terms of they can often be expensive, and uncertainty is always there due to the small market size. So that can better a lot of investment and make it challenging to secure funding. Regulatory hurdles are always there because it's not a very common pathway, and companies have to navigate like different regulatory requirements, ensure compliance in multiple regions, and not each regions are equal. So that brings us to the 4th topic, which is the overall market access and reimbursement, where securing that access can be challenging due to the high cost of rare disease treatment, and it needs a demonstration of value to the payer. And companies have to work with like different healthcare providers, payers, and overall the treatment needs. And I think that brings me to the final one, which is more awareness in the diagnosis. That there's overall lack of awareness and understanding of the rare disease itself among not just the healthcare providers, but overall even the patient community, can lead to overall delay in diagnosis, treatment. So those becomes the fundamental challenges, in my opinion, to start with. Over to you.
Thanks, Ashish. Very comprehensive. Saket, you've been in this area. You would like to add something, I'm sure.
Yes. So I fully agree with Ashish on the rare disease, the small patient population. But what I have seen in my experience that it's harder to diagnose due to slow progressions of disease symptoms. In rare disease, we have no clear endpoints or clinical measures to anchor on. It has very complex referral patterns with very few treatment centers that makes it more complex to identify these patients. And due to small patient population and also the lack of diagnosis codes, it is difficult to define the patient journeys. High cost is another factor to get the reimbursement approved, and working closely with these sites, these peers, PBMs are becoming more and more critical. And that is where, Nitin, I say data analytics playing a critical role to support pre and launch, post-launch activities, from understanding the market all the way down to tracking business performance. In many cases, what I have noticed, your competitors are blocking the data. So you don't have access to your competitors through traditional channels like claims and other real world data sources. And that is where you need to be very innovative to understand the market potential and use some of the other innovations happening in this area to understand the potential and define your go-to-market strategies, working closely across commercial and medical.
Can't agree more than that on that point, Saket. But you've been in this area as well from a commercialization of many products. What's your perspective?
I want to first, I agree with what Ashish and Saket just explained. I want to add 2 things, and coming back to the unpredictability and the uncertainty, especially when you look in building out your plans on go-to-market about incidence prevalence. What you see is a very large range that you're dealing with, and that makes it challenging from a planning perspective, sizing the opportunity. So it entails some risk that you need to manage as some uncertainty. And the second thing I want to add is that when you look at data and analytics, where you look more at primary care, specialty care. You have good data sets available, so you can take a very good quantitative approach. But when you move into rare diseases and ultra rare diseases, you see that your approach of data analytics becomes also more around qualitative information that you have. So, and I think it's a challenge for the companies on how we structure all that information, which is more qualitative from nature, both from an external, internal perspective, how you bring that together, and in a way find then your single sort of truth or the belief that you have as a company in the assumptions you want to bring forward when preparing for launch, as well as tracking performance post-launch.
Yep. No, so I think one thing which is across all your answers is the quality of data, the availability of data, right, which is very, very different for rare diseases. And I think all of us would agree that quality of data, availability of data, granularity, frequency of data is very, very critical as we are looking at insights. Now, in the rare disease market, when this is so complex, I want to get a little bit double click. Let's go a little bit into how do you define patient targeting, sizing of the market, field force sizing, things like that. Would like to get your perspectives on these very important, very integral things. Happens for all pharma products, but in rare disease, it is different. So this time, let's start with Bart, and we will go around the horn.
It all starts on identifying what is the applicable data set that is best matching the therapeutic area you're focused on. And what we have seen is that around the globe, we have data sets available. But again, we spend quite a lot of time on understanding which data set might best fit the needs that we have. And we are looking at electronic medical records, but also taking it further. Are there biomarkers available, patient cohorts, registries that can help us? So we take that as a starting point. Of course, then very tough to identify where these patients are located and what are center of experts that we might target. So, and that again goes in a almost manual approach in trying to find centers. And again, there what is very helpful if you're well connected in the commercial organization with the development teams in the organization, those can help. That connectivity can help with planning exercises on what are the patients, where are they located, where are the expert centers, and from there on build out the commercial organization.
Thank you. Thanks, Bart. Sakit, you would like to add something to that?
Yes, and Bart already mentioned some of the data sources, Nitin, but as you're going into the launch or pre-launch phase, it's very important to have a broad and robust view of the market and opportunities. And what I noticed is that as you're defining the market opportunity, very important for you to look the biomarkers, the registries, traditional like claims data or real world data, to bring all of these together to define your specific market, or maybe at the indication to ensure that you have the most comprehensive capture of physicians or your number of patients for market sizing, field sizing, targeting, patient finding, supporting different use cases. But if you are the first one in that market, because we had several launches here at Ipsen, and my learning from my current and from my previous engagement, that if you're the first one in some of these markets, it adds to the complexity because of low patient population. So you really need to invest in like EHR, EMR data to pull through insights where claims alone, for example, cannot support your market opportunities. And the other thing what I noticed is leveraging some of the advanced technologies like AI, machine learning to combine different data sets and fill the gaps can really help you to have a better coverage. And outside of real world, you should also look into some of these digital affinity data sets available in the market, just to understand the customer and patient preferences as part of defining your targeting strategy, how to do the field force sizing, not thinking from the traditional standpoint, but bringing some of the innovations happening in the rare disease to understand the physician behaviors or your physician behaviors as part of pre-launch planning, awareness campaigns planning, or HCP profiling, and that happens pre-commercialization.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, we've been dealing with some of that for our customers, and I cannot agree more with you. It's a very, very sophisticated field of play, and I think there's a lot of knowledge, domain knowledge mixed with technology that has to come together, right?
Yes.
Solve for these scenarios.
Right.
Ashish,
and I know,
sorry,
Nitin, we are talking about like data analytics, but for rare disease, just looking at data may not answer all the business questions or drive your go-to-market model. So you really need to bring different point of views together and have a very holistic understanding of the market opportunities so that you can penetrate and compete in very niche space as compared to some other therapeutic areas.
Okay. Ashish, would you like to add something to that?
No, I think Bart and Saket very beautifully covered a lot of these points. The only thing I would add is that when you start to double click on these topics, like for how do I size my field force effectively for such, targeted market that ultimately leads to like better patient identification and engagement. What becomes important is that it starts to involve more like looking at patient quality of life. What are your treatment algorithms? What are your forecasting models? And it definitely includes like patient mobilization and overall engagement strategies that you focus on. When it comes to like commercial targeting and effectiveness, the only thing I would add is that how do you prioritize your account target? How do you inform your territory planning and segmentation? The markers are key for this effective commercial engagement because the population is so dispersely spread, and it also includes like identifying what are the influencing levers and how that informs my forecasting, how I inform my allocation or investment or overall contract decisions. Because one thing I've seen is that while regulatory and reimbursement considerations are always there, but as part of that launch excellence, that payer evidence strategy and the evidence-based economic arguments become very, very important, which plays a very big role in how different markets treat, because each market may have different priorities and how they inform their territory planning. Those are the topics that I would add. Otherwise, I think my friends here have covered really well.
No, and I think you bring in a very important aspect, right? And that was my next question as well. The clinical trials in these areas, in the rare disease areas, will obviously not produce sufficient data, and because these are expensive, these are always hard to get approved. So that real world evidence generation becomes more and more important for these spaces, right? And there are different strategies that we see companies deploying. I would like to hear from you, Saket. Maybe we start with you on this one. What's your perspective when it comes to the RWD, the RWE, and this whole data analytics as it gets applied to that area?
So Nitin, it becomes more critical to bring our regulatory bodies or peers as we are establishing these contracts, and data is becoming more and more important. And when I say data, it's not the claims or other data, it's more going towards your real world evidence, your studies, bringing some of the clinical data along with the clinical pathway data is becoming very important to define the clear understanding of the impact we can bring and share that with our peers and PBNs as part of defining the contracting strategies. The other thing what I have noticed in this is having GPO level data or the site level data can really help understand different strategies, working closely with our market access or value and access groups, because they generate a lot of data. They have partnerships with these GPOs and big institutions as we go through the clinical studies. So that is where I feel your pre-launch or from the clinical side, your evidence, safety information, and some of these internal data sets can be very critical to bring along with the commercial data sets to drive the peer PBM strategies to penetrate the market.
Great. Bart, would you have a perspective to add here?
Yes, of course. When we're talking about real-world evidence, maybe the point I want to highlight here is that when preparing for launch and also preparing interaction with payers, is that you need to look at what are comorbidities, co-medication that is in play for the patients you have in target. And that brings up a real challenge because sometimes medication or therapies used for these patients are used across multiple indications, a wide variety. So then it comes down, how can you filter use and prescription linked to your indication forward? I think that brings a real challenge, especially if you have more conventional therapies that are being used broadly. So and their data sets are, again, very important. You need to truly customize. We know data sets in Europe are different than data sets in the US and data sets in other parts of the world. So it requires some creativity to obtain that data. And again, we see that is very important for patients and for payers to get a good description. And the second point, I think it's already highlighted, a lot of evaluation of therapies is done based on quality of life. So how you bring that forward and how you can fully quantify that is really important. And that's sometimes challenging to collect this in a very robust way with real-world evidence.
Yep. So I absolutely agree. And I think I'll now switch to another important topic that, it's very close to this area. You were talking about real world evidence. Obviously, it's coming from the patient, the outcome that we create, the impact that we have on their lives. And that's where market access also is very, very different. I think probably one of the most important integral subject in this particular area. And, what we believe is that data and analytics can actually be the prime mover for that, getting the patients approved for those therapies, keeping the patients onto those therapies. Wanted to hear your views on what you are seeing, how data and analytics is different in this space, driving market access. Would love to hear your perspective. Ashish, I know you mentioned this when we were talking to you about this topic long ago. Maybe we'll start with you.
So thank you. I think the common factors that I think people talk about is like how technological advancements and the overall regulatory processes can help. But I would like to focus that, overall market prognosis and funding plays a very key role. Like if you look at overall increased funding for high cost therapies, what they can facilitate for a patient access and drive overall like average price per standard treatment, that area is something that is consistently, I see more and more attention being paid. For instance, I remember reading something on Italy has designated an annual sum of like $1 billion for oncology and other high cost products. And they are also drafting like a law on rare disease to propose measures and funding for increased research, surveillance, access to orphan therapies. My feeling is that there will be more and more countries adopting to that. And that's one area which will help a lot. And there will be a threshold where this will not be so rare. And I'm referring to the strategy for market prognosis and funding. So that is the point I would like to highlight. Back to you.
No, I think that's a great perspective. And Saket, you've been driving some of these. I know. Would you like to share some perspectives there?
Yeah. So we are leveraging real world and other data sources to identify where patients are concentrated and using that to define the market access strategies to target payers and PBMs to cover treatments. Data is becoming very, very important as part of our peer PBM targeting strategies, working closely with our market access teams. And what we are doing is we are leveraging these different data sources to find very personalized access strategies based on how we are segmenting different peer groups. And this is also to streamline the reimbursement process. Data can support informing these peers of disease burdens to the patient or value and or effectiveness of treatment. And we leverage different real world sources, our traditional sources. We are also buying some of the peer level information from external sources to bring it together to define these market access strategies to target peers and PBMs. And as we're thinking, we have different tactics for more like key peers versus some additional peers that can bring the influence to our overall tactics.
Wonderful. And, I think, Bart, you might have a European perspective to add to this question. I'd love to hear your perspective on this as well, because, of course, the challenge is very different, but please feel free to cover the global experience that you have in this area.
Yeah. No, and I would say you need have different challenges around the globe, although you can say what's happening in the US and outside of US probably are two big categories, because what you see happening in Europe also applies to markets like Australia, Canada, Japan. The point I want to add here is that we talked a lot about getting the product to the market, which is already a big hurdle. And I think all the challenges described here by both Ashish and Saket are very true. It's how you convince, how you bring the right data to the payer on the unmet need and the value our therapies can bring for the patients. But then also when you are close to the finish line where you convince the payer, look, it's worth investing in these therapies for the patients, you see also more and more concern coming on budget impact from a payer perspective. And again, that is where data analytics play an important role, is how you predict what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years from a budget impact perspective. Can these therapies truly deliver on the promise they showed in clinical trials, and will that happen in real life? So and that is also where we need to be very creative in how we apply data. As we talked earlier about, sometimes you have higher unpredictability based on the data sets you have. So what are the beliefs you want to bring forward to lock your way down and predict uptake you have with your asset, and how is that going to impact the payer's budget? So and from that, risk-based agreements, value-based agreements are more and more in a way demand by the payers to say, look, we believe in these therapies, but we also have a concern on budget impact these therapies might have. And again, that's where data plays a very important role to make the best decision, because at the moment of negotiation, you need to make commitments for 3 to 5 years, and you're locked at that moment. So it brings a big responsibility, because if you under forecast in a way, you might leave value on the table. If you overpromise and over forecast, your therapy might never get to the market. So and that's a very tough exercise to do, but a very important one. And there we need, with the resources we have, with the data that's available, make best guesses in a way, and bring assumptions forward that you believe in.
No,
And Nitin, if I may add another point, what Ashish mentioned, the cost of care. So rare disease, it's very expensive. We all know that. And many times when you're defining these strategies with your peers or PBMs, it's more based on cost of care. And cost of care is not just cost of your product, right? Because some of these are very complex, where you have to visit the sites. And when we met with some of these physicians from big institutes in US, the feedback was that it's not just the cost of your drug, but how you have to visit to these specialized centers. So your travel cost, your hospital, all of these will add to the overall cost of care. And what we are doing, working closely with our value and access partners, is to bring the change in the perception from cost of care to value of care, where we are more focused on patient outcomes and the value we can drive from these products. And that is where thinking and leveraging the data and insights are very important, because it's not data. Everyone is getting the same data through different channels, but how to generate the insights more relevant to have that personalized experience is becoming more and more important in the industry.
So I think this is probably one of the most most interesting parts of where we are personally engaged, and I'm seeing personalized engagement, right? So we talked about market access, we talked about real world evidence, we talked about payer approvals, but now let's talk about these diseases are for life in most cases, right? And you're talking about families getting impacted significantly with, say a young child having this problem or an older patient having this problem. The caregiver comes into the picture. And generally, it's not one physician treating this. So you are talking about a care team almost around the patient, right? And we are seeing personalized care, therefore, becoming more and more important, right? To the points that we're talking about, that it is the long-term impact that everybody is looking at. And again, that can be very expensive, that can be very difficult for everybody who's participating. And therefore, we feel technology plays a very important role. I know some of you are already on those journeys where you are creating those personalized engagement with patients, caregivers. I want you to spend a few minutes talking about that, your perspective, very integral, very important. And I think data and analytics has changed form in that particular area, because you're talking about data and analytics in almost real time as patients are behaving, the next best action in the patient realm. So some very fascinating topics are being explored. Saket, why don't we start with you and I'll go around the table.
Sure. So I think data and analytics can really support patients in their long-term care through capturing 360 insights across different channels available on the patient and their treating physicians into a robust patient services support programs. All the companies are having their patient services programs. It can be high-touch models for something like rare disease versus some other opportunities partnering with external providers. But bringing the real-world data, your engagement, digital data, and define the whole omni-channel strategy or engagement strategy with patients, with their treaters and caregivers are key to successful launches and post-launch support maintenance. As we know, in rare disease, patients and other caregivers are essential in the treatment decisions. We are empowering the patients to make these decisions. So having that omni experience from the patient centricity standpoint is becoming very important, and data and bringing those 360 insights can play a very critical role in the decision-making for the manufacturers, empowering your caregivers or pals to have a complete 360 view of the patient experience, but also empowering your patients to make the right choices as they go and visit physicians.
Ashish, I know Novartis is, big time involved in such programs. Your perspectives would be very welcome, please.
So I think I'm just going to take where Saket left on the overall patient identification. So I would say that starts with more personalizing the patient experience, journey thinking. So if you have a patient finder approach that uses scoring and predictive modeling to tailor more interventions based on that patient's specific criteria, and you can do that if you have patients' specific needs and preferences are analyzed during your data analytics and decisioning journey, where you are able to combine claims, EHR, and lab data in ways that it unlocks value that one single data may not provide. But the moment you start to stack them together, it starts to open up different dimensions that you do not get from ready out of the box, either data or any type of analysis. I also think that the focus could be on the next best action in a patient's case management that could give them better informed decisioning and coordinated care efficiency. But if I take specific example, like what you asked, is that in a I would say rare renal patient identification model, and I'm picking from a Novartis example that you asked. In a rare renal patient identification model, you can use a combination of like claims and lab data to identify patient subtypes and what their diagnosis could be. Once you have that, then you can optimize your overall resource allocation by forecasting the demand for specific treatment services, just to ensure, that the providers are better prepared to meet the patient needs and can allocate resources more effectively. So I would say, and this ultimately helps you with the targeting and effective treatment, overall improving patient care. So I would say stacking your data to unlock value and then creating a next best action for the right patient case management and intervening at the right time can help a lot. That's how I would summarize. Back to you.
Fascinating.
And I think Nitin, Ashish touched on a very important point for complex therapies like rare disease. It's very important to think from an integrated data journey standpoint rather than thinking of standalone data assets. So how you bring all of these different behaviors together to define your patient journeys, bring the personalized experiences becoming more and more important, because we used to focus more on our customers, our physicians, and we see a shift coming in the industry where we are empowering the patients to make these decisions. We are more focused on providing a personalized patient experience by bringing all of these data sources together, but also building these predictive models close to real time to find these patients. And once you find these patients as your leads, how you're going to convert and bring them on board on your treatment or drugs. So very important to think and bring different point of views together as part of having a very clear patient journeys defined in the rare disease.
And Sanketi, I can build on that. I think it's a very valid point on becoming very patient-centric and patient-obsessed. And you're going to have a combination of data sets that you can apply. You have the data sets from the EMR on how therapies are doing for the patients. You have the data and insights from patient support programs. You also see more and more digital companion occurring in the space to support the patients. So I think the first challenge is how you connect these data sets to deliver the best individual patient experience. But next to that, I also think from a predictive perspective, especially when you have a patient diagnosed on therapies, how you can guide the patient throughout the journey, when you can expect exacerbation, worsening of symptoms. I think we can learn a lot from broader disease areas like cardiovascular oncology. What did they achieve with predictive modeling, and can we bring that into rare diseases? But it will require some creativity on connecting the data sets and also dealing with lower patient numbers that we have. And again, with the objective that we can then better tailor a good experience for the patients.
Yeah. And the other topic you mentioned, Nitin, is the technology, which we have not touched. And in the rare disease, technology or the advanced technologies are becoming very important, not just from the patient support programs or caregivers or your patient liaisons, but also bringing that close to real world experience, thinking from patients and physician standpoint. And some of the strategies we have executed is, as you're defining the patient journeys, how you can bring the patients and physicians closer. So let's say if we have a patient through our patient support program and they are talking to our caregivers, how caregivers can find who are the relevant physicians or specialist in those zip codes and give that very personalized experience and share some of the case studies or some of the real world experience becoming very important. And the other thing that is very important in the rare disease area is the social media, because many of your products are for younger population where the parents are making many of these decisions and they're going to these social media sites and asking these questions about the symptoms and the safety measures. And as you're looking at different data sets, understanding what you can get through the social media, whether it's very traditional like LinkedIn or Facebook's versus some other articles or case studies or abstract studies you can get, can really help you to bring your perception-based data along with your secondary data sets all together to define your go-to-market models, but putting patients in the center and be more value-driven can really help you penetrate these market dynamics.
Yep. So I think, this is something that we are seeing increasingly, and I think it is logical as well, right? So patient center has been a conversation for as long as I remember, but I think in rare disease it is a necessity, right? Because you have to mobilize resources for a very small population. You can't have it everywhere, so you need a channelizing force, and I think that's where data analytics, all the things that you're talking about, ability to look at social data, applying new technologies, creating experiences where next best action, etc., is there for all people involved, right? So I think this is pretty fascinating. So I'll come to the last question, and probably after that we will summarize. Post-launch, right? Now, rare disease in this IRA-driven market, everybody has squeezed timelines. You need to get the launch very, very quickly, where everybody's watching, and then you need to make it successful. And that's where, again, I think data analytics would play a very different role, very critical role in measuring, the success of the launch. Right? I'm sure you would have perspectives to share on that. We can go around the table. Ashish, maybe we start with you. What do you see the role of data analytics in post-launch for rare disease? Right, your perspectives, please.
I think if I just reverse that question, mostly it always starts with what decisions you need to make. And to make those decisions, what are the action insights you need? And to help those action insights, what is the data and analytics you need in place? So when it comes to rare disease, I see that it's no longer a case where you're once done and dusted with, you apply a one framework going forward. I think it'll be very critical that how real-time ongoing feedback loop helps identify areas for improvement and allow that timely adjustment to the strategy. Coming from that, it directly makes the real-time intervention of data analytics decisioning very important. So continuous monitoring and touching on what Saket said, go where the patients are, where they are expressing themselves. So that continuous monitoring of whether it is social media or other care interventions and feedback loop enabling the data analytics will allow companies to actually track product performance, patient feedback, market trends, all real time. The second part I would say is the personalized customer engagement is another significant area where overall optimizing that resource allocation becomes crucial, and that data-driven insights help you identify like what is the most effective channel, strategy, investment, overall ensuring the effort and on the focus area that are the highest potential for return, both in the sense of patient care. The third I would say is the predictive analytics will play a very big role, more than currently playing in a traditional drug market, because forecasting that future trend and customer behavior that enables your proactive decision making and strategy adjustment, that has not been a common practice. But now I think with the integration of AI, machine learning, Gen AI, we can uncover those hidden patterns and provide much deeper insights into customer interactions, market dynamics, overall enhancing the ability to make very informed, timely decisions that improves the overall performance. So I would say those would be my 3 factors. Back to you.
Awesome. Saket?
Yeah, fully aligned with Ashish. I believe data is everything in a post-launch settings to validate your assumptions you made as part of your launch planning. I've seen many companies rely only on the prime research data, pre-post-launch activities to track the market responsiveness or the impact. My experience is the investment in primary along with secondary and some of the digital data sets will validate your go-to-market models, your targeting strategies set during pre-launch, as well as market assumptions on actual size and the opportunity. And as you launch and as you understand more about your competition, finding ways leveraging some of the predictive or advanced analytics can really help you to change your strategies close to real time. Bring your physician sentiments and behaviors that support both commercial and medical insights in addition to other data sets are important. And then the other factor we should consider is to measure the impact of your brand tactics or the effectiveness of your brand tactics and bring that feedback loop from the customer and patient standpoint to enable companies to quickly adjust their marketing, medical, and access strategies near real time is becoming very important, leveraging the insights-driven decision-making.
Thank you. Thanks, Saket. And in the interest of time, Brad, I would ask you to present your point and summarize the session for us.
Yeah. No, the only thing I can add is, of course, when you have the go to launch, it's a moment of celebration, and it's also a moment where, from the moment you launch, you can bring back all validation to a lot of assumptions you made. So I think we talked about the uncertainty you have. So from the moment you launch, you have that an opportunity to validate again, as well as I think it's very important that you keep ears and eyes wide open and then try to collect all feedback you get from the market. And this can be quantitative again, but also a lot of qualitative through the own field force. The sales team, medical team can give you a lot of valuable input on how your strategies are applying, what is the first signals you get on patient experience with therapies. So that's a very important point, that from the moment you launch, you start validating, but keep tracking all the insights you can get, which again, in the beginning will be probably more qualitative than quantitative.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think, if we had more time, this could continue for many, many hours. But thank you for your very, very insightful conversation. The discussion that we had, I think one of the best panel discussions that at least I have attended. So thanks a lot for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity, Indrajit.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.